Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We're on episode 14. We've done 14 of these. Technically, we've done 15 of these, but one of them got cut short. But yeah, episode 14. Music was a little epic for a Wednesday, like I said in chat. But I've been I'm running out of ideas for starting soon music, and so I've just been cycling through all of the soundtracks I like, all the video game and movie soundtracks I enjoy. And so today was Dark Souls 3, one of my favorite video games. The boss music is epic. The good thing about those games is they're difficult, and so you get to hear the boss music a lot because you're going to spend a lot of time trying to fight the same boss. It's great. The last song that played is Dark Eater Madeir's soundtrack. I know that one very well. I spent a long time fighting him. Ended up beating him with a large stick. He's a dragon, by the way, in this video game. Very large dragon. Very large dragon, but I had a larger stick. I had a very large stick, and the dragon was no match for the large stick. But that's cool. Where were we? We were on chapter 7. We read the beginning of chapter 7 last week. Last Friday. Chapter 7, the gist of what we read is the aftermath of Justinian's reconquest of North Africa and Italy. And so it dealt with some of that. Specifically the Lombard invasions, which happened not long after the reconquest of Italy. The Lombards came in and conquered a large part of northern Italy. So we dealt with that, how the Lombards functioned in Italy, how the remaining Byzantine areas functioned in relation to the Lombards, and very specifically, how all of this related to the papacy, and how it didn't force the Pope into a position of power, but it just kind of naturally happened that the Pope was looked to as a leading figure, as he had been spiritually, but now in the secular world, he was looked to as a leader. So it dealt with that, and a specific pope it dealt with was Saint Gregory the Great, and how he became kind of the precursor to the medieval papacy. His papacy was a precursor to kind of the setup of how the medieval papacy was, specifically with the papal states. But I think that was pretty much where we left off, was him talking about St. Gregory the Great. Yeah, we finished up the section about St. Gregory the Great. There's not much left in this chapter. On page 136, end of 136, 142. 142, so 7 pages left in this chapter. So we'll get through it today. It'll probably be a short stream. I might, hopefully I can go off the cuff a little bit, drag it out. But we're not going to read past this chapter at all today, because once we get past this chapter, we get into part 3, the onslaught of Islam, which will be very interesting. I wonder what his thoughts on it are. But we're going to take a break next week from this book, and we're going to read a little bit of En Route by Jordi Karl Heismans. Take a little break, a little refresh. Refresh the mind a little bit. You know, bring it all back in to perspective. But that will be next week. Hopefully that goes well. Let's see, anything else interesting happening? Not really. Nothing ever happens. I could get into politics, but this isn't a political channel yet. We deal with history here. History is not political at all. Yes, we all have folders on Justinian. You don't have a Justinian folder, whereas emperors. I have an emperors folder, and it's just full of emperors. Justinian being one of the more important ones. As you can tell, I have plenty on Justinian. Plenty. I wonder who I have the most on, though. I have a good bit on Anastasius. Augustus, not really. Theodosius. I have more on some generals than I do on most of the emperors. Theodoric. I have a lot on him because he was very important. Theodoric was the Ostrogothic ruler of Italy, and after he died, Italy was reconquered by Belisarius. So that's what he was up to. Stilicho, very important figure. Belisarius, he is the one who reconquered Italy from the Ostrogoths. Now this is really my big folder. It's 4th century and 5th century. I have a lot on the 5th century. It's pretty wild. This is my hodgepodge. So these are my folders, and the lines show what other folders they link to. Each of these is one note. So the year 150. Let's just choose you. I chose wrong. That is not a name I know how to pronounce. All right, 161 to 180 AD connects to Marcus Aurelius, which also connects to 166 to 180. So yeah, that's cool. Just a little look into my note ball. We do not allow any mention of Belisara in this chat. We have moved on to a different horse game. There's a much more important horse game that is taking up our attention now. We do not talk about Belisara. Now get that through your head. Yeah, you'll notice chat's a little bit, y'all are a little bit behind. Because for some reason, like, my internet's good, but it just doesn't want to connect well with YouTube. And so y'all are suffering because y'all are a little bit behind. Probably about 5 minutes, holy cow. Like a minute, probably a minute behind of where I am. But that is to be expected. Nothing ever works. Nothing ever happens, and also nothing ever works. But it's fine. Really, it's fine. It's not a problem. It's fine. It's fine. I'm also getting over a cold. I'm on the last stage of it. So if you hear me, I'm going to be muting probably a good bit once we really get into this to blow my nose and clear my throat. But y'all are here to listen to me read. Y'all don't want to hear me talk about anything else. I'm trying to drag this out because this is going to be a short section unless something really catches my eye or makes me really angry that I can focus some time on. So I'm really just trying to kill time so we have actual content to upload to the to the channel afterwards. But yeah, anyway. Justinian bequeathed to his successors an empire burdened with debt, distracted by religious controversy, extortionately governed by a bureaucracy more corrupt than ever, and inadequately protected by a dwindling army against the new dangers that threatened its frontiers. To make matters worse, Justin II had taken over with this damnosa hereditas, an equal, if not increased, share of the imperialist ideas which had actuated Justinian. Hold on, I actually think I have a mention of him. No, I have Justin the First. What do you mean, yeah, I sound normal? If you're talking about stream being off, that's just the delay. I don't know what normal. Uh, there's nothing normal about me. I'm not your average guy. You know there aren't many guys like me. I don't know. I don't know how to be a I don't know. Anyway, insolent demands on Avars and Persians, reinforced by no military or financial strength, ended only in ignominious withdrawals, or worse, in the outbreak of ruinous wars. In spite of Chosroes' desire for peace, Justin provoked hostilities with the Persian Empire. Chosroes is the king of Persia at this time. Justin provoked hostilities with the Persian Empire. A casus belli was never wanting on the long frontier, and temporary success for the Roman armies was speedily followed by the disastrous fall of Dara, 573, one of the chief defenses of the Mesopotamian line. Justin's megalomania now issued in madness. Tiberius, an able general, became his successor, and a policy more suited to the needs of the situation was inaugurated. Yeah, I don't sound sick. I just feel sick. I don't really, but like I said, I'm on the last leg. It's just I have to blow my nose every once in a while. Fully realizing the critical position of the empire, Tiberius was prepared to concede lands to the Avars in the Danube region, taking care only to retain the Sirmium, the essential point. Let us... Where is the Sirmium? I do not know how to type. Sirmia, can you load faster, please? Let's see. Sirmia. That tells me nothing. Thank you for nothing. Wikipedia might have it. Wikipedia has everything. Wikipedia never lies. So it's Croatia and Serbia. You know, Croatia and Serbia are funny countries because they speak the same language. You know, they should just get along. I don't know why they're not one country. You know, they really should be. We should force them to be one country. We should force them to get along. And, you know, yeah, make it just one country. Them and kind of like how they did with the Czechs and the Slovaks, you know, when they made Czechoslovakia. That that was a great thing. Nothing bad happened with that. So we should do that with Croatia and Serbia, and maybe Albania and Bulgaria. You know, the Baltic region. That is the Baltics, right? No, that's not the Baltics. What am I talking about? The Baltics are the north. Or am I getting this mixed up? Yeah, no, the Baltics are the north. The Baltics are the north. What is this area down here with Croatia and Serbia? What is that area called? I can't believe I'm blanking on it. Um, it's not. They're not the Slavs. The Slavs are like Poland and Ukraine and Czechoslovakia. I think is Slavic. Man, what is that area called? Can't believe I'm forgetting. You know, it's a tragic day. Tragic day when you forget your countries that hate each other. Yeah, we should just all of those. Yeah, they really should just meld together. We need to take Albania. Albania will be the leader because Albania is the greatest country in that area. Albania will just rule over everything. We'll throw Serbia, Croatia. You know, let's give Greece to Albania. Let's give Greece to Albania. That way we don't have to deal with the Greeks anymore. They'll just be Albanians. It'll be perfect. It solves every issue. Yes, Nah, let's not throw Romania into the mix. Romania belongs to Austria. But anyway. So the Sirmium region is Croatia and Serbia. Long story short. But things had gone too far, and shortly before his death, the great fortress was surrendered to the Chagan of the Avars, while a flood of Slav invaders poured resistlessly into northern Greece. The action taken by Tiberius had anticipated the future course of events. Byzantium, separated from Western Europe by a solid barbarian bloc, must concentrate henceforward upon her Asiatic provinces, where a definite policy of conciliation in religious matters and alleviation of fiscal hardships was laid down for the reassurance of her wavering subjects. Meanwhile, despite every effort made to terminate hostilities, the war with Persia dragged on, ruinous but inconclusive, into the reign of Maurice, who succeeded Tiberius in 582. Isn't that the name of the monkey from Madagascar? Maurice. Emperor Maurice. I do a terrible Julian. But isn't that like the Julian's right-hand man in Madagascar? Crazy that they named an emperor after him. A lucky chance to end it occurred in 591 when a new Persian ruler, placed in power by a palace revolution, was forced to seek Roman aid to maintain himself upon the throne. Peace was the prize exacted by Maurice, and a general westward movement of the Byzantine troops was at once set on foot with a view to restoring the Danube frontier. The tide seemed to have turned in favor of the empire, but another reversal of fortunes was destined to plunge it immediately into the lowest depths. Anxious to follow up his success against the Avars, Maurice refused to allow his troops to return to the capital for winter quarters. A mutiny broke out on the Danube. Phocas, an uneducated centurion, was proclaimed emperor, and the rebels marched upon Constantinople. Maurice's stern measures had made him generally unpopular, and Phocas found no difficulty in entering the city. His coronation was followed by a general massacre of the former reigning house. Now, worth to note that at this point, the army is still mostly made up of barbarians. So that's why, although I wouldn't put it past the Byzantines to also just slaughter everybody involved with the last reigning emperor. Everyone kind of just had it. You know, if you if you overthrew a regime, that's just kind of how you did it. Although the Franks had a different way of doing it. They would just pluck their eyes out and stick them in a monastery half of the time. Which is still pretty brutal, but at least they're still alive, I guess. Yeah, if the Franks weren't executing you, you were more than likely just blinded and stuck in a monastery. Still not a. It's a good way to go in a monastery, but personally speaking, I'd rather not be blind. I'm slightly blind. I have to wear glasses, but not that blind. I like having my eyeballs in my sockets. The strong hand of Maurice was now removed, and under the purposeless rule of his successor, it seemed that chaos was come again. The circus parties of the great cities were at each other's throats. Persecution of Monophysites and Jews, expressly ordered by Phocas, was rapidly alienating the eastern provinces, while Persian armies steadily advanced along the whole frontier line from Armenia to Palestine. In 608, they were at Chalcedon, facing Constantinople across the narrow strip of sea. Plague raged in the capital, and shortage of food added to the miseries of the inhabitants. Even the Greens, the emperor's own party, taunted him in the circus and resisted his officers, in consequence of which they were deprived of political rights. Salvation was to come from an unexpected quarter. Africa, at this time, perhaps the most flourishing of the imperial possessions, was governed by Haraclius, a brilliant and successful veteran commander. Disaffected nobles at Constantinople had entered into correspondence with him, and he finally consented to dispatch an expedition to place his son, another Haraclius, on the imperial throne. In 610, the fleet sailed from Carthage, and the fresh spirit of enterprise, the battlemented ships, the picture of the Virgin, not made with hands, which the leader carried at his masthead, brings us into a new atmosphere. Medieval Byzantium is before us. The city on the Bosporus is no longer the true center of the Mediterranean world. Her territory is narrowed down to the surrounding districts of Asia Minor, Thrace, and Macedonia. Spain has driven out the imperial garrisons. Byzantine power in Italy steadily diminishes in face of the development of papal and Lombard organization. After 604, no Roman troops are found in Dalmatia. Slav invasions have driven a wedge between East and West, and the rift grows continually wider. Gradually, the Balkan states, very similar to Baltic. Baltics and the Balkans, all of them, they're kind of the same people. They're not, but they have a lot of the same traits in that they hate their neighbor who speaks pretty much the same language as them. But anyway, gradually the Balkan states are coming into being. The empire now looks eastwards, and its forces are concentrated on the Persian front. Yeah, I'm not surprised I forgot that it was... they just, that's barbarians for you. Why were they all so barbaric? Because, I don't know. It's just how they were. Different time. All right. And yeah, the Balkans. We love the Balkans. I love Albania. I'm a big fan of Albania. I really like Skanderbeg the Great. Probably one of my favorite lesser known historical figures. My as the youngins would say, my goat. GOAT, the greatest of all time. Skanderbeg was a janissary. The janissaries were Ottoman troops who were typically European. They were Christian. They were Christian men, young Christian boys who were captured or kidnapped at a young age and forcefully converted to Islam and then trained in the arts of war. And they were the Ottomans' most effective troops. And Skanderbeg was one of these people. His father was the king of Albania. He was captured. He was turned into a janissary as a kid. But he remained Catholic, and he just kind of kept that fact hidden. And he ended up turning on the Ottomans at a key battle, him and all of his janissaries. And then he becomes king of Albania and spends the rest of his life waging war against the Ottomans. Fantastic, really a fantastic person. Fantastic figure. Anyway. So Haraclius encountered few obstacles in overthrowing Phocas, the hated tyrant, whose death immediately followed his downfall. But this was only the beginning of his task. 12 years were to elapse before the empire was sufficiently restored to be able to undertake aggressive operations of any size against its eastern enemies. Order and discipline had to be re-established in the armies. The insolence of the nobles and the turbulence of the factions must be abated. The financial resources of the state must be repaired, and the religious conflicts of the provinces appeased, before Haraclius could deliver Constantinople from the twofold menace of Avars and Persians, and restore to the empire its lost provinces. In the meantime, the Persian advance continued. By 614, Damascus had fallen. Jerusalem itself was captured soon afterwards, and the true cross, the holiest relic of Christianity, carried off to Persia. Egypt now became for 10 years a Persian province, and her invaluable resources of foodstuffs and revenue were lost to Byzantium. Worse still was to come, for the Persian forces advanced again through Asia Minor and pitched their camp at Chalcedon, facing the capital across the waters of the Bosporus, while simultaneously on the landward side of the Avars, descending in force, ravaged the northern suburbs. In despair, Heraclius actually thought for a moment of transplanting the seat of empire to Carthage in order to make a fresh start in a new environment where precedent carried no weight. That would have been. That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting thought right there. Let's finish this and I'll get into it. This remarkable plan was not realized, but its conception indicates the originality of its author, an originality that marks the solution which he ultimately found. By 622, okay, so that would be a fascinating idea. Just because of Carthage's location. Obviously, Carthage throughout history has been well used. It's in a great position in the Mediterranean. Are you gonna... Or did I choose the wrong one? I chose the wrong one. Here it is. Here it is, yeah. So obviously Carthage is right here. Historically speaking, Carthage is in a great spot to attack Rome. Is in a great spot to reconquer all of this just because of its location, just because of its proximity to Italy and to Rome itself. And so that's a fascinating idea. What if he moves from Constantinople here to Carthage? What changes? Obviously, Constantinople is in one of the best positions. I don't know, Constantinople's kind of in a position of its own making. Obviously, access to the Black Sea is important in its making. The Aegean Sea as well. But what if it's in Carthage? What if he moves the seat of power to Carthage? That's an interesting thought. Obviously, Constantinople falls to Islam sooner, because Islam comes up from the Arabian Peninsula, conquers all of this, good part of this, and at a certain point they have to fend off Constantinople in the 700s or something. And then by 710, the Arabs have pushed all of this, and they've conquered all of this, and they're able to push into Spain. But if the seat of power is in Carthage, does that happen? It's an interesting thing to think about. But we'll see. We won't see, actually, but interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about. By 622, much had been achieved. Careful appointments to important posts had surrounded the emperor, with members of his own family and trusted dependents. Economy in administration and reorganization of the available troops had restored the imperial machine to working order. Religious discord presented a more obstinate problem. Mere tolerance was not enough, since in this age even tolerance had to be imposed by force. A formula of compromise was found to patch up the differences of Catholics and monophysites, but the long-continued efforts of Haraclius to secure its acceptance met with repeated failure. In the capital, however, all were of one mind in face of the common peril, and the forthcoming campaign against Persia began to take on the aspect of a crusade. For nearly a century, this point of view had been gaining ground. The wars of Byzantium were coming to be regarded as holy wars, undertaken in defense of the Christian faith, whose existence was indissolubly bound up with that of the Roman Empire. The strange genius of Haraclius sharpened the religious consciousness of his subjects. Church and state were at one in furthering the great enterprise. Sergius, the patriarch, allowed church money to be borrowed to finance the operations. Sacred vessels of gold and silver were melted down to provide additional funds. Blues and greens were reconciled for the nonce, and even the free distribution of bread, the prerogative of the capital since the days of Gracchi, was able to be suspended without serious disturbance. The blues and the greens are the circus parties. That's their their bipartisan system. They run the circus, the entertainment, and they also hold political power. The strategy of Heraclius was bold in the extreme. Constantinople was menaced on two sides. He resolved to buy the Avars off while he concentrated his attacks on Persia. Further, instead of attempting to regain the lost provinces of Syria and Egypt, he decided to strike at the very heart of Persia and to lead southwards into the Tigris Valley all the Christian peoples of Armenia and Transcaucasia. In less than 6 years, he had accomplished his daring project. In the first campaign, the chief object was the freeing of Asia Minor. Heraclius landed at Issus, near the Cilician gates, which form the entrance from Syria into Asia Minor. Advancing into Cappadocia and Pontus, he drew off the Persian troops from their threatening position at Chalcedon and defeated them in a decisive battle. The next 2 years saw a further advance. Heraclius occupied Armenia and busied himself with recruiting the Colchian and Iberian tribes. Successful raids were made into the northern districts of Media, but the Persian armies, in spite of repeated reverses, were still able to prevent a definite invasion. The year 626 was the turning point of the war. Chosroes determined to put forth all his strength to crush this dangerous adversary. One army was to hold Heraclius, another was to advance on Chalcedon and attack the capital. Meanwhile, the Chagan of the Avars had collected an enormous host and was preparing to invest Byzantium simultaneously from the north. There had been loose alliances on former occasions between the European and Asiatic foes of the empire, but this was the first example of a strictly coordinated effort, and the double menace was overwhelming. With sublime courage, Heraclius held to his plan. Part of his forces was dispatched to Constantinople, where Bonus the patrician and Sergius the patriarch were placed in charge of the defense. Another part was to oppose the Persian contending force, while Heraclius himself held Armenia, and proceeded with his preparations for an attack on Persian territory. All through July, the siege of Byzantium continued. Each day saw some fresh attack upon the walls. while Slavonic vessels in the harbor threatened the sea defenses. Filled with religious enthusiasm, the inhabitants put up a desperate resistance. A concerted attack was repulsed with heavy losses. The plan having been discovered beforehand, many of the Slavs were trapped by Roman ships, and the Avars, panic-stricken at the disaster to their forces, retired from the siege. Meanwhile, the other Persian army had been defeated, and Heraclius himself was nearing the end of his long preparations. Towards the close of the next year, the final blow was struck. Haraclius descended into the Tigris Valley, routed the last Persian army, which fled southwards in disorder, and seized for himself the residence of Chosroes, 70 miles north of the capital. Persian resistance was at an end. The armies revolted, and Chosroes was deposed and put to death with lingering tortures. His son made peace with Heraclius, and the Persian wars of the Roman Empire were over for good and all. By the terms of the agreement, Rome regained all her lost provinces, and the prisoners in Persian hands were restored to her. The most striking symbol of victory was the return of the true cross, which figured largely in the joyful pageantry which greeted Heraclius on his return to Constantinople. Old and new persisted side by side in this closing ceremony of a passing world. The triumph of the Roman imperator, whom his people saluted by the name of Scipio, found its conclusion in the Cathedral of St. Sophia, where the patriarch raised high the sacred relic of the Rood to bless the Christian emperor, head of the church and defender of the holy city. Head of the church. It's an interesting way of saying that, because he's not. But we know that. We know that we're not orthodox. We love our ortho bros, but they got to get real sometimes. The brilliant ceremonial was the celebration of a real and startling revival of the fortunes and prestige of Rome. On north and west, the Avar domination steadily declined after its check before the walls of Byzantium. Slavs and Bulgars revolted from its hegemony. Hegemony? Something like that. And the next few years witnessed the foundation of the first Slavonic power in Moravia, speedily followed by the establishment in Dalmatia of an independent Croat principality. In the east, the Persian Empire, hereditary foe of Rome, had received the heaviest blow ever dealt it by a Roman emperor. All its recent acquisitions had been torn away, and permanent civil war was now implanted in its territory. Once more, the Mediterranean civilization had claimed for itself the populations of Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt. The final chapter of Greco-Roman history had been written. It was actually the last triumph of the ancient world. Rome and Persia, the age-long combatants, had destroyed each other in a final death grapple. Their weakened and rebellious provinces lay open to the onslaught of Islam, which in a few years was destined to break forth from the Arabian deserts. Behind the barrier of the Balkan states, now rapidly coalescing, Western Europe was assuming new forms. The growth of feudalism in Italy and France can already be discerned, and signs are not wanting of the future expansion of the papal power. The missionaries of Rome have carried her message to the far west, and England is slowly becoming Christian. Out of the chaos of invasion, the medieval world of Europe is beginning to take form and substance. We got through that way too fast. I should have talked about the Balkans a lot more. Because we got through that way too fast. That was way too quick. I guess we can pull up Google Maps and spend time there. No, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. Where do we go from here? I've only been live for like 40 minutes. Do we just end it here? No, I don't think we do. It's got to be something else. I don't know. Y'all have any questions about what we've gone over that I can answer? That's actually probably a terrible thing to ask because y'all are like a minute and a half behind if I had to guess. So I'll give it a minute and then, if y'all want to ask questions, feel free. I'll answer them as best I can if you even have questions. But let's see, what did we miss? What did we miss in chat? Yeah, I see Belisara already. Again, there's a new horse game in town. We've moved on from Belisara. Yes, Serbatia, Slovenia. Well, Slovenia doesn't make sense because Slovakia and Albania are really far away. Like here, let me show you. Let's pull up a map. Let's go to Google Maps. Let's get some good old Google Map stream. Not Google Amp. I'm sorry, I'm stupid. I don't know how to type. Maps. Are we using Bing Maps? Do I have to? I'm not downloading Google Maps. Here, I gotta just download Google Earth. Google Earth is pretty coded. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I think we just bookmark Google Earth. Sounds like the plan. Good. What? No. Let me just explore. Thank you. All right. Google Earth. Really don't like the setup. Here we are. No, no one cares about Africa. I care about Africa. Africa's important. Tunis is Carthage now, by the way. That's Carthage, by the way. Tunis. It's like tuna. But yeah, Albania is here. This is Albania. And Slovakia is right here. Yeah. Slovakia, Hungary, Serbia. Yeah, what we gotta do now. Slovenia. We could take everything from Slovenia. Just kind of take this border right here, from Slovenia to Bulgaria. Slovenia, Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, North Macedonia, Greece. Give it all to Albania. Just we can leave Montenegro. Montenegro can stay for whatever reason. But we just got to give everything to Albania. Albania deserves it. Albania has been through so much. It deserves something. Honestly, let's give Turkey to Albania too. The you know, everyone complains about, this one world government that we're going to have. If it's Albania, that doesn't seem like a big deal to me. If the one world government is just Albania, I could get behind that. I say we go for it. I say we go for that. Do we want to search the streets of however you pronounce this? Tirana? American Hospital? Ayo. The American hospital in Albania's capital? Let's check it out. Looks like a hospital. That's for sure. Um, why is it not letting me? Okay. Seem to remember there being a better way to move around with Google Maps. Ah, greatest country on earth, Albania. You can tell by just looking at it. Like, what other country has red buildings with white in the middle of it? Only in Albania. Hey, look, it's the committee. They've moved locations. Yeah, I know this is evolved into a Google Earth stream now, but I read too quickly, much to my chagrins, because it really hurt my throat. eBay. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's leave Albania. As much as I hate to leave Albania, you know. Holy cow! How do I get out of this? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Good old Albania. Also, how do I rotate? No, don't show my location. Uh, no. Yeah, reset to north, please. Thank you. Yeah, Google Earth is pretty cool. That's the Milky Way, by the way. All, all hail the one world government of Albania. Bow before your new masters, also known as Albania. The Albanian prime minister shall rule the world. Ooh. Hey, look, it's Sri Lanka. We had a whole stream about Sri Lanka and Ecuador for some reason. I get distracted easily. I can't help it. Ecuador. Sri Lanka. Madagascar. We talked about that. Port Mauritius. Port Louis. I wonder what this place looks like. I've always wondered about these places. Wow. That's beautiful. I might have put us down in the most beautiful place in St. St. Louis, Port Louis, something like that. I don't know how to navigate here though. Did these guys really just? Well, there's a road there. Let me go to the road. Or did? No, yeah. No street view data. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, they didn't really. Port Louis, I guess, isn't. It's an island kind of in the middle of nowhere, so I doubt they really have gone through every street. We can take a little look. Take a little look, see? Are there any churches? How big is this island? St. Paul, Madagascar. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, so these are your ball. Huh? Okay. I'm confused. How did I end up on top of a mountain? Am I on Mars? Is this where the Mars rover is? I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah, is this where the Mars is this where the Mars rover is? If you put a red filter, if you put like a red filter on this, is this just Mars? Like, where is this? Sudan. Ah. No clue how I ended up there, but we did. Hmm. All right. Well, if y'all don't have questions, I'm not going to stick around for too much longer. But because you all are so far behind, I'm just going to put on the starting soon screen and give it a bit of time for y'all to catch up. So I'm not cutting this off while y'all are in the middle of it. So, good night. Don't forget to hit the like button, smash the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. If you want to ask a question in the comments, I will answer. I normally check the comments. But yeah, reminder, next week we will be reading a chapter from a different book for a little bit. Just probably next week. It shouldn't take more than 2 streams to get through it. But yeah, y'all have a good night.